This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bouk and Zoobie show on the world famous LAR.com, 927LAR.com, and now on YouTube. I am John Calabucas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubalake, Zoobie, and special guest Walter J. Stubbs, debut on YouTube. Welcome, Walter. Actually, Walter's been on our show. This is the third time.
Actually, fourth.
Yeah.
Fourth. Oh, that's
Fourth
right.
time.
Fourth time. That's right.
I'm glad I'm dressed for the YouTube occasion here, so we'll see what happens.
You look great, man. You look great. All right, folks. Well, welcome to the show. This is our March Madness special because obviously we're actually taping on Monday morning. Incredibly, the way everybody's schedule worked out, and so everybody got the picks last night. We quickly went through our brackets. So the way we're going to do this, folks, is we're actually going to go from the Sweet 16 down to the championship. We're going to throw some upsets that we picked in the earlier rounds. And we're going to talk a little NCAA snubs, which for the tri-state area, guys, seems to be a logical area to start. What do you think, John?
Yeah, well, not very happy about St. John's. Can't believe Seton Hall didn't get in. Uh, I took a look at some of these teams that actually got in, and I said St. John's and Seton Hall would wipe the floor with these teams. Okay, and and to be honest, I don't really like the setup. I mean, you have teams like Wagner who are 500 or barely over 500, and I mean these teams have zero shot. How about just taking whether they win the conference tournament or not? Pick out the 68 best teams. That's the way I look at it. I mean, and I almost feel like, I mean, this again, solely my opinion. I almost feel like there's a bias against uh, teams that are in the tri-state area. How can the Big East only have three? Three. It, shocked. But I wasn't so shocked because I actually, to let our fans know, I actually texted Paul when I saw all those upsets in the conference championships, and I said, you know what? I don't think St. John's is getting in. And as I saw the picks, unfortunately, my prediction came true. That was a last second change in my mind, but listen.
Well, it looked like that St. John's wasn't actually even close, right? They were not considered the
No.
last four in. I don't know who releases this last four in stuff. So, what do you think about St. John's, Seton Hall, just the Big East in general? Kind of getting. I think they definitely got shafted. I agree. At least for
I what happened was there were 5 conferences that took away with their automatic qualifier, took away the bids of those teams. I mean, Pitt was in there, Indiana State, which to me, I know you guys are, I know we're tri-state. I kind of been watching a lot of basketball all year, and the Big East to me was down. I think UConn is by far the best. The problem is the committee goes by the net now, right? 3 years, 4 years ago was the RPI, and they're going based on strength of schedule from the beginning of the year to the end. And unfortunately, the Big East, and I think Shaka Smart said this last night, was that yeah, UConn had probably the best year ever for a Big East team, but DePaul and Georgetown hurt the conference big time. DePaul obviously made a coaching change in the middle of the year. Matt Brady came in. Georgetown had some bad out of conference losses. Um, in my estimation, the Big East, and believe me, I've gone to the Big East tournament every year for 35 years and watch games left and right. The league was down. UConn is by far the best team. I think Marquette and Creighton are a step there below that. The rest of them were all kind of mixed in. I mean, St. John's. I think what the committee needs to do, and is go back to what they did 8 years ago, especially with the transfer portal and teams not meshing right away until the end of the season. I think they need to look at how the teams play in the last 15 games of the year. And if that was the case, I think St. John's would have gotten in because they were playing better the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Seton Hall is kind of muttering. The school I have the problem with, and I'm a small guy because I really do believe that a lot of people, the average fan, want to watch the Cinderella. Indiana State was 29 in the net. It's the highest net for a team not to get in. They have this kid Avila, who is the guy can't jump over the yellow pages if we even have yellow pages anymore, and he's a very fundamentally fun guy to watch. He looks like Clark Kent. It's one of those stories that in March Madness takes fold, and where it really also hurt was the Mountain West got 6 in. They were only going to get 5. New Mexico took a spot. So John, you did get a Patino in the tournament. Just so you know that, just the sun. But overall, I mean, I think they didn't do a bad job. I agree with John. I agree with John with some of these conference teams that don't. You should have put it this way: have a above 500 record, and then you win your conference, you get in. If you don't, then maybe you look at taking another at large. But there's a lot of things that they're discussing. There's even been talk about expanding to 80 teams, for the simple reason that it hasn't expanded since the Division One. I think had 200 and I think there was 250 or 260. Now you're up to almost 350 Division One teams. So the percentages, so it might be something they're going to look at down the road.
I think there's no question that what John said regarding the weak conference champions and teams like Indiana State is a very good point. I'm glad you brought them up because, again, we're tri-state, so we're a little biased. There's no question. So there were other teams that were definitely snubbed as well. And that's going to lead to an expansion where they're going to expand the play-in tournament on Tuesday, in my opinion. So you're going to have more of that 16, 17 matchup games, and then more of the whatever you want to call those games, the better teams that are at large. So I would expect probably, I would say, I guess another 8 teams, which would bring it up to 76, because I think that would make sense mathematically to avoid what happened this week. You can't expand it much more than that because you're really going to devalue the teams. Some good teams have to get snubbed. I think it's just part of the interest of the
But I think it was a strategically bad move because you have the largest media market here. So why would you exclude? I mean, again, both teams I thought were deserving, but now they're all basically in the NIT except St. John's. I don't know, decided we better get rolling on our picks. Getting our new recruits, which starts today. So I think that's the reason. I think that's the reason why they declined the NIT is they want to get rolling now.
And that's another reason to think about expansion, because if this is going to continue with the teams that decline to go to NIT, then you might as well expand and add some teams so they're playing in the NCAA tournament, because unless the NCAA decides to put some rules in place, which I know they've tried to or trying to maybe say, okay, transfer portal is not open until 2 weeks after the postseason would seem to be nice. That might be a logical explanation. I mean, you even have teams maybe in the mid-major level that were turning down the NIT. Memphis turned it down. I'm not going to get into. There's a few others because
I think Pitt, Mississippi State.
Well, they're worried about Indiana. They're worried about, like you just said, because you're dealing with this roster stuff, which to me is ruining the game. I mean, I've said this, and it used to be college basketball. It used to be about as Dick Vitale used to always say, it's about the name in front of the jersey, not the name in the back. And now it's become the name in the back, like professional sports, and that's taken away to me a little bit of the passion of college basketball, because now you grow no identity to these guys, and it's like a show of salesmen now. Where am I going next? And it's a problem not just for the big schools. It's a problem for the smaller schools, and it's something that they need to address because I think you're going to see people lose interest more and more if it just becomes, you know, guys being paid to come to a school for a year or two. There's no affiliation, and you go to college basketball games, you go to college football games. It's that pageantry that people have, where they associate with that player being one of them, right, as an alum. That's not the case anymore, and it's to me, it's taken away the whole great lore of college basketball. And and John, to your point about the media stuff, I mean, yeah, it's great in a way, but the New York media, let's be honest, they hardly ever talk about college basketball or college football, ever. They'll talk about it now for 3 days or for the next 2 weeks, but overall, it's always in the back pages. I mean, I was talking to Mike Vaccaro, and I'm like, are you going to cover this or that? And the Post doesn't even cover it like they used to. I mean, I remember days for the Big East tournament where you would open up the Post, the Daily News, or the Newark Star Ledger, and they had writers upon writers there at the event. Now you got pretty much nobody except for maybe one or two. So
It's funny you mentioned about Vaccaro. He's actually the only one that's been writing about St. John's all year.
You got it. Exactly.
He's the only
And that's
one.
because it's his because that's he loves college basketball, so that's why he gets to throw it in there. But it's not the same anymore. And to be honest with you, they look at the NCAA doesn't really look at where your market is. They look at where your the resume and everything else. And
No, I'm just saying as part of the
for you to for the market here.
If you have several teams that are that close, wouldn't you take the largest media market and put them in? I'm not saying to take teams that are not deserving from a major media market, but ones that are right there. Why wouldn't you do that? You get much higher ratings. Imagine if St. John's and Seton Hall were in the NCAA, the ratings would be much, much higher right now, even for the beginning games. So I was a little surprised on that end, just from marketing wise and revenue wise. So that's, again, my opinion. I'm a little pissed off today. But
Believe me, believe me, I'm a St. Bonaventure guy, so I'm not exactly happy either. And I'm sure Paul's not happy with his Terrapins, but he's not a Terrapin guy.
The Terrapins. They haven't been around all year.
Yeah, now, as I told, he called me Mr. Terrapin, John, on a text, and I said, I'm actually Mr. Bear. So we'll get to the Baylor Bears in the bracket because I know nobody in the tri-state cares about Baylor. Scotcher's got no excuses, though, this year based on this. So let's start going into the brackets, guys. We are going to talk some NFL folks later. We'll do that at the end of the show because there has been some big news on the local teams that we definitely want to get to. And then, Walt is a great NFL guy as well. But let's just get through this. Like I said, we're going to do the Sweet 16 and any upsets we have. And then once we get through our 16, we'll go to 8, 4, and the Final Four in the championship. So I will go first. And as always, guys, when it comes to filling out these brackets, every year I'm like, I'm going to pick a ton of upsets because last year was insane. Let's face it, tons of upsets where you had FAU and San Diego State in the Final Four. I'm actually thinking everyone's thinking that's going to happen again. I'm going to go the opposite way and then go a little more chalk. So I'm going to go with we're going to start in the East. My the teams that are coming out for the Sweet 16 are me. I went with chalk in UConn, San Diego State, Illinois, and my big upset in this region is Drake to advance to the Sweet 16, which means they defeat Iowa State. And that's a little shout out to Indiana State, Walter, because obviously Drake is the team that knocked them out. So that's what I did in my Eastern region. So I don't know who wants to go next on their Sweet 16 in the East.
I can throw mine in there. Obviously, if we're talking the East, I mean, UConn is the overall number 1 seed, no question. Whether you like the UConn fan base and Danny Hurley, that's your own choice. But they are by far, they have the inside game with Klingman. They're healthy now, which they weren't in the beginning of the year. Especially beginning like Stefan Castle, who's one of the top recruits who came in, and he was hurt beginning, and now he's into the flow. But I have them getting over into the Sweet 16, and I have Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers, who I think are going to cause a matchup nightmare for UConn because they have the ability both inside with Johnny Broom and Holiday with the freshman guard to definitely give UConn problems. And I'm not going to go with the chalk this year because I went with UConn last year as a 4, which wound up being true. But I got UConn, Auburn, and then on the other end, I do have Drake win in the first round because I am going to be rooting for the DeVrieses between the head coach and player. But I have them getting bounced by my sleeper team, which are the BYU Cougars, and I got Iowa State with them playing, and I have BYU Auburn in the
Wait,
Elite Eight.
you can't jump to the final 8.
Oh, I can't jump? Oh, come on.
No.
Well, I will say, I'll explain. BYU I have. For the simple
BYU
reason,
all
they're
right,
a
John,
matchup problem. They're a
I
matchup
have
problem
to
for
officiate
teams.
this, folks. I have to officiate. I've got some the unruly guest here, but that's okay. So, John, we're going to go with we're going to go 16, Walter, all the way through, then 8,
Got
and
it.
then 4, then 2. All right, John. Who
Got
do you got in this? And you can definitely make comments. Don't get me wrong, but let's just get through the teams first.
So I definitely have Connecticut and San Diego State. My upset before, let's say in the 32 is Duquesne. I think that they're going to actually beat BYU. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to go Connecticut, San Diego State, Illinois, Iowa State, North Carolina, Alabama, Baylor,
Okay. Now
Arizona.
you're moving on. You're moving on to the next region. So you already moved on.
Oh,
to
you want me just to stay in the East? I'm
So,
sorry.
so John and I are not following the protocol.
Oh my God, maybe it's bad job by me.
Oh, no. In
right,
the East,
so
it's Connecticut, San Diego State, Illinois, Iowa State.
Okay, perfect. So the first thing I just want to mention quickly before we'll move on to the West next, is that this region is ridiculously stacked at those 4 teams.
Yeah.
You could argue that those 4 teams may be the 4 best teams overall. UConn wins the Big East tournament, Auburn wins the SEC tournament, Illinois wins the Big Ten tournament, and Iowa State wins the Big 12 tournament. So I just thought when I saw this come out, I'm like, what is the committee doing? They're literally putting nothing into those conference tournaments mean nothing. And I think that's wrong because those 4 teams are the hottest teams. So for all those UConn haters out there, at least there's a lot of tough teams for UConn to get through, right? So that's my thought. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
And you're forgetting that 2 of the other teams that are in that region went to the Final Four last year.
Right,
San Diego State and FAU.
Right.
So,
That's right.
and
anyway,
FAU has everybody pretty much back from last year's team. So you're right.
This region is awesome. All right, so let's go to the West. I'm gonna start each one, and Walter, then John. We'll just be consistent. So, Sweet 16. Here's my big upset right off the top. I've got Michigan State in the Sweet 16. More to come on them. I did go with Alabama. I did go with Baylor to get to the Sweet 16. Like I said, no excuse for Scott Drew. If he can't beat Clemson in the second round, or Colgate, I mean, that's a bad. I'll be unhappy. And then I went chalk Arizona. So those are my 4: Michigan State, Alabama, Baylor, Arizona. Walter, who do you got?
I have UNC. I have Alabama. I have who else do I have in here? I have Arizona, New Mexico.
So you have New Mexico.
I have New Mexico. What I pretty much have done, I have Arizona, New Mexico, and who am I forgetting in here?
No, you got it.
I got it. I can't read anymore. But what I'm trying to get at is my whole thing is I think that the 2 conferences to me that were the best in college basketball were the Big 12 and SEC. And the things I'm looking for is I'm kind of sticking with those conferences, except for New Mexico, because they have really good guard play. And Pitino he's got Jamal Mashburn Jr. and he's got Eddie House's son, who both obviously were good pedigrees. I like the way that New Mexico was playing, so that's why I have them in instead of, say, Baylor, which is obviously a Big 12 team. But that's who I have as far as that region goes.
All right, John, what do you got?
I have North Carolina, Alabama. I wanted to show some sympathy to Paul by picking Baylor because they're very shaky with these overtime games and everything else, but I'm going to stick with Baylor and Arizona.
All right, well, I appreciate that, John. All right, so let's go to the South. So I said I didn't have a lot of upsets, but I think I'm picking a lot of upsets. So we'll see what happens. All right, here's another one. I'm right off the top. I got A&M in the Sweet 16. Duke, Kentucky, and then Marquette. So I went, obviously, A&M over Houston is my big upset. Walter?
I actually have I was thinking of Texas A&M over Houston, but I just think that Kelvin Sampson, they play such defense, and the one thing that coaches will always tell you is defense, travels, offense is fickle. So I'm going to stick with Houston on that one. I have Duke as well, though I do have James Madison as a first round upset, just so we could, if we're going to talk upsets against Wisconsin. And then I have Kentucky. And then I have, since it is the last year of the Pac-12, I kind of have a little heart for that conference, and I'm going to go with Colorado. I like the way they play. They have a very good team. Thad's a great coach. And then that's the ones I have for that particular region.
So you have Colorado winning the play-in and then winning two more.
Yeah,
so
I love Silva. Silva's I watched him play live 2 years ago when he was a freshman. He's a great player. They have pretty much everything that they need. They were injured too. Silva was as well, beginning of the year. And I just think that they're going to go on a little bit of a roll.
All right, cool. All right, what do you got, John?
It's funny that Walter picked James Madison because I actually have them beating Wisconsin as well. But my four are Houston, Duke, Kentucky, Marquette.
All right, so you had your one upset in the first round. Nothing. You're chalking it up here, John. So that's okay. That's within the rules of the Bouk and Zoobie show. And quickly, by the way, just want to make a quick promo and thank everybody for watching the show. Please like our episodes, subscribe to our episodes. We're still on Spotify.com as well. And we're on the world famous LIR and 927LIR.com to get our show. In the YouTube comments, please feel free to make some comments, good or bad. We really appreciate people listening to our show because ultimately our show is a word of mouth show. So we're delivering different content, mostly talking about the tri-state area sports scene, which today obviously we're doing a little different. We'll just touch upon that. So again, please continue to support the show. We really appreciate it. All right, let's get to the last one is the Midwest guys. So this is what I went with. I've got Purdue, and I actually went with Kansas because I feel like everybody is picking against Kansas in either the first round or in the second round. So I still went with Kansas. I don't have them going beyond that, but I went with that. I did go with I guess my upset in this region is South Carolina over Creighton, and then I had Tennessee. Well,
This is the revenge tour for Purdue. So are they going to follow what UVA did in 2019 after they were knocked out in the first round by UMBC? I have Purdue advancing, but I would not be shocked if TCU beats them because that's going to be a mismatch as far as play style. TCU plays up tempo, and I can see Zach Edey, having some issues going up and down the court, at that pace. But I have Purdue advancing, and I'm kind of taking the same stance as Paul is, but with a different team. Gonzaga's always got high expectations. This year, there was even talk of them not making a tournament 3 weeks ago.
And they ended up
So
at the 5.
and so I got them going, even though I it was interesting. I was thinking of McNeese because Will Wade, the former head coach of LSU and VCU, who got himself in a little trouble at LSU, he's now, of course, coaching the Bayou Bandits. And if we can insert Bandits with Will Wade, I guess that's kind of appropriate. But I think that Kansas will beat them, though. I think that that Gonzaga will beat McNeese. I like Oregon in that first round as an upset over South Carolina, but I have Creighton ultimately in that bracket. And I also have Tennessee, who I think is going to come on strong after that poor performance in the SEC tournament, where they got pretty much smoked by Mississippi State.
So just to clarify, did you have Kansas in the Sweet 16?
No, I do not. I got Tennessee, Creighton, Gonzaga, Purdue.
Gonzaga. Okay.
I got the Zags.
You went with the Zags.
I went with the Zags. I'm going with Mark Few. You know,
Okay.
it's an interesting thing because, you know, the other part of the tournament we should talk about that's funny is the head coach of Long Beach State got fired, Dan Monson, who's actually coaching in this tournament. And Dan Monson is the one you give credit to for bringing the Gonzaga program to prominence, because he was the head coach in '99 when they went the Elite Eight. And then, of course, he went to University of Minnesota. But so I got a little Zag feeling in this tournament. So
all right, that's fair. That's fair. All righty, John, what do you
got? I have Purdue, Creighton, Tennessee, and I actually have 2 upsets. So I have TCU beating Utah State, but I am putting Samford in the 16.
You go with Samford. Okay.
I have them beating Kansas, and I have them beating Gonzaga.
All right. That's fair. That's fair. All right. That's a good one. All right, John. All right. So now we're going to go back, and we're going to go from the Sweet 16 to the Final 8. I went. And this is part. I'm going with UConn far, really far. UConn. I got Illinois. I think they're playing great. I think that's the team that actually can beat UConn in the East. So who do you got, Walter, in your 2 representatives in the Final 8 from the East?
I have UConn playing Auburn, and I have Auburn.
No, you can't go.
No, I can't go. I have Auburn. Okay, Auburn, UConn. Okay. I have BYU. Because I think the Cougs are a mismatch for a lot of teams that I was trying to get into that have not faced them before. They have 3 or 4 guys that are 6'10" that can hit threes. And they also can play inside. So I think that's going to be a nightmare for some teams. And I'm sticking with Iowa State because they play hard defense. They're tough offensively. I think that they are a team that is going to at least go to that stage. I don't have Illinois for the simple reason that Illinois can't defend. I mean, they've defended the last couple of weeks, but overall they haven't. I mean, I know Terrence Shannon has lit it up for them. My problem with Terrence Shannon is I don't even know if he should really be playing based on his, his court stuff going on where he.
So who do you have? Who do you have?
I have BYU. I have BYU, Iowa State, and Auburn, UConn. Am I right with that?
But we're already past that. So you have UConn and who? Who comes out?
I don't. I have Auburn, BYU.
I understood. So who wins that game? Auburn or BYU?
Auburn is going to go advance. Correct.
Okay.
I have Auburn.
He has Auburn in Connecticut.
Okay, Auburn in Connecticut. Yes. Okay, perfect. John, you go.
I have Connecticut and Illinois.
All right, so John and I are in the same, and Walter did have Auburn. All right, West. I'm rolling with Sparty to the Final 8, and Baylor Bears bailing out. There's no way to get into the Elite 8. Arizona wins. So Michigan State and Arizona are my 2 teams from the West. Who do you got, Walter, coming out?
I got UNC and Arizona because I want to see Caleb Love, who is the Pac-12 Player of the Year, go against his former team, UNC, where he was the ACC Player of the Year. So
That's
that should be entertaining.
they definitely set that up. There's no question on that. What do you got, John?
I have North Carolina and Baylor.
Wow, you got him. Oh my God, there you go. So John's got a tendency to pick winners there. I like it. All right, North Carolina and Baylor. That's a rematch from a few years ago. That unbelievable game when Baylor was down by like 25 and forced overtime. And of course, John, as John mentioned, lost in overtime. That was a couple of years ago. All right, South. I went with A&M to go far, but not anymore. Duke, Kentucky, because it's March Madness. Come on, they set this up too, right? Well, guys, Duke, Kentucky could meet each other. They love that historical aspect of that. They could show that Leitner shot forever. So I'm going with those two guys, Duke, Kentucky. What do you got, Walter?
1992 revisited. I'm with you. I have Duke, Kentucky. I think
You
it's
can't
going
go
to.
further.
I'm going to go on. I think it's going to be a similar game
Okay.
that they played back in '92. Even though this year both of them were blue bloods, where back in '92 Kentucky had a bunch of underdog guys coming in to play.
Yeah.
All right, John, what do you got?
I have Houston and Marquette.
All right, there you go. Houston, Marquette for John. A little different.
And it's against my better judgment to go against Kentucky, but I said, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Marquette.
All right, perfect. All right, the Midwest. I can't. I don't like Matt Painter in a big spot, but I don't know how he can't advance here. He's got really a cakewalk to the Elite Eight if you really look at it. Purdue, and this was tough on the downside. Tennessee scares me, even though Connect is a tremendous player. I'm a little worried about Rick Barnes in this spot too, so that's going to be fascinating. Purdue Tennessee matchup where both of them need to get to a Final Four, so at least one of them will get there, right? So who do you got, Walter, in the Midwest?
I have Dalton Kmet and the Tennessee Vols playing Purdue. I do believe that will be hopefully, it's interesting because one of those guys, whether it's Rick Barnes or Matt Painter, will get to the Final Four. I know Rick Barnes was there when he was with Texas back in 2003, but I think that's what it's looking to shape up to be because Tennessee, the one thing that, again, what I was talking about before, they play tough defense and they're going to go and they're going to play hard and, it carries. So we'll see what happens.
All right. What do you got, John?
Make it a trifecta here, Purdue and Tennessee.
Yeah, it's tough to. This was a tough. It seems like they just have an easy path. So I agree. All right, so All right, This is our Final Four. So I will not torture the audience or everybody. I'm gonna give my Final Four. How about we just do it all? No, we'll do Final Four. Let's do our Final Fours, then we'll
Final
get.
Four.
Okay. So we're not gonna go region by region with one team. All right, my Final Four: UConn. This is my shock of the tournament. These guys could literally lose in the first round. I have them going to the Final Four. Tom Izzo, Michigan State. And then I've got Kentucky, and Matt Painter finally gets it done and gets to the Final Four. Who do you got in your Final Four, Walter?
I am going outside chalk, though like I said earlier in the broadcast, I do think UConn is the best overall team, but I am going to go for Auburn and the Auburn Tigers to get to the Final Four to play a little fun there. And then as far as the West region, I have UNC beating Arizona to advance. I think they're obviously the best team in the ACC, and I think that they have the ability to get there. And as far as the South region, it's going to be the Kentucky Wildcats getting a little revenge, though it's 40 years later, against Duke. And then for the Midwest, I'm with you, Paul. I think Purdue finally gets there. I think it's deserving to see a kid like Zach Edey, who wasn't highly recruited, who's stayed all 4 years. It would be nice for him and Painter to finally get to a Final Four.
All right. What do you got, John?
I have Connecticut, and I'm going to make Paul feel very, very good. I actually put Baylor in the Final Four.
Oh.
Houston and Purdue. So it's Connecticut, Baylor, Houston, Purdue.
All right. All right. A little Texas bias. I love it. I love it. All right. So we'll just go through final two and champion. We won't do it one at a time. So, guys, at the beginning, at middle of the year on Bouk and Zoobie, Walter, I said that UConn and Kentucky were the best teams in the country. Then after that, Kentucky decided to lose like 4 out of the next 5. So that I'm like, yeah. But I'm going back to my mid-season thought that those are the 2 best squads I had seen all year. I'm going UConn against Kentucky in the championship, and I'm going with UConn back to back. Hopefully, this is the jinx of the jinx. We're all the hack amateurs like myself picking these games. Even though I watch a ton of college basketball, I never get this right. So hopefully that will be the death nail for Hurley. And I'm going back to back, first time since Florida, right? What was that, 2001 and 2 or 2 and 3 or something?
6 and 7. Yannick Noah.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Anyway, all righty, Walter, what do you got?
I have the same team from the. I have Kentucky, and I have Auburn in the final, and I have Kentucky and their wild faithful making the trek down to Phoenix, Arizona, where there will probably be 150,000 people on Mill Street in Arizona State watching the game. And I think that they will cut down the nets and make John Calipari, who does have a shore residence in Lavalette, make the New Jersey people happy.
All right, all right. All right, John, what do you got?
I have Connecticut against Houston, and I am going with Connecticut to win the championship.
All right. So 2 Connecticut's, 1 Kentucky, a lot of similarity. So this will probably be a tournament of many upsets. The good news is we can always go back to the show on YouTube and see how these picks went. Our audience can as well. For people who don't know anything about college basketball, hey, go with some of our picks. I know Walter. Walter, are you going to attend Final Four this year? Are you going to Arizona?
Right now, it is not likely. How do I put this? What goes on during the Final Four is you have the NABC convention for all the college coaches. And, I've been to, God, probably I think it's 19 Final Fours in the last 25 years. But if you ask the coaches, most of them will sit there and tell you that the venue should be 4 places for a Final Four. It should be Indianapolis, New Orleans, San Antonio, and Atlanta. And the reason why is everything is centrally located. So you could have fans in a hotel up the block from one team and up the block from another. Whereas Phoenix, which I was in 2016, you had fans and teams in downtown Phoenix, but then you had teams and fans in Scottsdale, in Mesa, and then Glendale, which is where the State Farm Arena is, where the championship games or the Final Four is being played. It's 20 minutes away. So Ubers or renting a car is the only way of getting there. So yeah, the weather's great and all that other stuff, but it's not centrally located. So I'm taking a pass this year. Next year it's in San Antonio. I hopefully get invited back on this show. I will be packing and getting ready to go there because I think San Antonio is one of the best venues to have it at. So not this year, Paul.
All right, well, that's awesome. Yeah, so I will not be attending either. I only attend when my teams are there. So I've been to one Final Four, 2002, Maryland Terrapins.
Yeah, it's in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
And you were right about Atlanta. All right, so how about, I mean, it's if you go for, MVP of the tournament, it's probably going to be somebody on Connecticut based on where we're going, or Kentucky where Walter went. It's kind of tough. Kentucky's got so many guys. So who, if you had to pick somebody off of Kentucky, Walter, who would you pick as the breakout guy who's going to be the difference maker if they win?
Shepard, Reed Shepard, because he was a kid that his dad played at Kentucky. I remember the recruiting process with him. Kentucky fans were going ballistic with Calipari to get him, and Calipari at first was kind of like, but he is the leader of that team. I think he's just a smart basketball player. Got another kid on that team, DJ Wagner, who for Jersey people, his grandfather's Milt Wagner. His brother played at Memphis. Their guard play, I think, is really good. And they're getting better because Shepard's a freshman. Wagner's. So they have a chance, I think, to really, one of those, it's going to be one of the guards. So we'll see what happens with that.
So Wagner and Dillingham, he's the other guy, right?
I love Dillingham. He comes off the bench, but he's phenomenal.
Aren't they one and done?
Oh yeah. I don't think Shepard is. I think Shepard's a guy that I would not be shocked, because remember now with this NIL, these guys are going to get money that are going to get more money than if they went to the developmental league or if they go to the NBA and they're going to play. Right. I mean, look at Hunter Dickinson. I mean, he went to Kansas from Michigan. I think don't quote me on this. I think he got over $1 million to go to Kansas, which is unheard of. But that's what they're getting. I mean, so I think they might stay.
I don't think Dickinson is that good of a player. I mean, he's a good college player. He's a low post player, and he does occasionally shoot from the outside. I don't see him. He's like remember Oscar Tshiebwe from last year, right? Another great college player. I think he's now. So,
and who knows how much he's going to play, because he's kind of hurt. Actually, Kansas is hurt pretty much all around. So I think the depth's going to hurt them. I mean, it's the excuse for a lot of teams. There's a lot of guys injured. Like Florida suffered an injury in the SEC tournament. Their center's out for the year. There's a lot of questions with stuff going on. Even Brandon Smith, the point guard for Purdue, got hurt. I mean, supposedly he's going to play. He's okay. So it's whoever's the healthiest and playing the best, right? So we'll see what happens.
Well, the tournament starts in Dayton again tomorrow night. So for these play-in games. First games Thursday and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Though there's nothing like the first 4 days of the tournament. So looking forward to that. So anybody else got anything college hoops before we do a quick swing to the NFL? We're going to have to leave out the rest of the sports this week, John. I don't know if you could definitely throw something in baseball, but let's talk a little NFL, and it's really fitting because, as people who have been listening to our show and Walter comes on, Walter is a big Dallas Cowboy fan and is also a season ticket holder to the Jets. So he's got his AFC team, his NFC team, and incredibly, the Jets, who I ripped on this show last week for doing nothing, have suddenly started to make moves. But I don't know about this one. This is something where the Jet haters are already the minute this happened, when Tyron Smith signed with the Jets, the immediate comments from the Jet haters, and I won't go into the people who are doing this, but what is the over-under on how many games that he's going to play? So this fits into this. Only the Jets, like if any other team signs him, maybe he can play a full season. But with the Jets, you just waiting for him to go down. So Walter, what do you think? I mean, you saw him. He played 13 games last year. So what do you think?
In the 13 games he played this past year was the most he played the prior 6. He's a future Hall of Famer, no question. The minute he came out of USC as a first-round pick, he is, but he's had injuries, not just in one area. He's had back injuries, he's had knee, ankle. What Dallas did this past year, which some say is the reason why he was able to play 13 games, although he still missed 4, by the way, was that he didn't practice. The whole year, he did not practice during the week. That was for him to work on his body, to make sure he was able to get on the field on Sunday. So they were able to get 13 games out of him. Dallas was looking at it. Believe me, they wanted to keep him if they could have, because left tackles don't grow on trees. But I think the amount of money which he got from the Jets, which was the $20 million, the Cowboys are free. They're capped out at their salary cap, so they couldn't really go after or attempt to re-sign him. If he would have taken a hometown discount, maybe. But I think the Jets made a great. if here's what they got to realize: if they can get 10 games out of him, so that's 7 that he's not going to play. You got to have somebody ready to step in for him for those 5 to 7 games because he's not going to play a full season. He'll miss 1 or 2, 3 at the very least. But when he's in there, you guys will have a guy that just moves and plows, and you don't have to worry about Aaron Rodgers' blind side or anything like that because he is still he was a Pro Bowler this past year. It wasn't like he dropped down in performance.
And he
So I
doesn't
think it's
commit penalties, right?
no,
He's got a low penalty count.
and he's a good locker room guy. He's a guy who's going to do his job. So like the question is just making sure he can do his job. So I think the Jets are going to have to be a little lenient on his practice. And hopefully, if they understand that, which I'm sure they did when they negotiated a contract with him, that he'll hopefully be able to play on Sunday. If they do have him, that's a huge pickup for them. Huge.
So, John, what was the guarantee? Did you know the contract? Usually our contract guy, right? Because it's all incentives to get to 20, right? I don't know what the base was. I don't know if anybody knows.
Yeah, they didn't. I couldn't find the base anywhere, but they said that the base was very low.
So
Like
if he
you said,
gets hurt,
it's laden with incentives, but they never mentioned that the amount.
Right.
So
that'll come out. All right, cool. And also, they also made another move on the right side, and this move is not a bad move because Morgan Moses was acquired from the Ravens. But if you just look at the organizational history of this team, they had this guy for one season, and then he left, and now we're giving an asset up for him, a 6th-rounder, which is the compensatory pick that I butchered a few weeks ago. I said the Jets had 3 out of the last 5 in the 7th. They actually have the last 2 in the 7th round. But that 3rd pick was actually a 6. Well, guess what? That pick's gone. And then they swapped in the 4th round. I believe it was like 22 slots, which actually could mean a lot. So, of course, you can't okay, but he's going to slot him in at right tackle. He's a starter. But the fact that they're just giving up assets for a guy they already had as a Jet fan it's definitely frustrating.
well, and not only that, he's 33 years old.
True.
So, I mean, it's amazing that we're giving up so much for someone who's 33 years old. I mean, they have an old team. I mean, when you start looking at the line, they're old.
Well, it's a mixture, right? The tackles are old. But
they're
I
old.
mean, Simpson's young, Titman's young,
Younger.
and Barrett Tucker, if he can play, he's also young. That's probably. I mean, this is just again, if for Jet haters, it's just easy to make fun of him. How could you not? Because you got a right tackle who's 33, and you got a left tackle who never plays a full season, and then your right guard is a good player, but hasn't even come close to playing a full season in the last 2. So it just could be the same situation where, relying on guys like Dwayne Brown and Mekhi Becton, by the end of the year, they're broken down or playing lousy, and the team's not going anywhere. So this is a major roll of the dice, but the Jets, Douglas put himself in this position where he has to do it because they really have such a tiny window to turn it around. I mean, maybe 2 years. I know Rodgers is throwing the 4 years stuff out, and I guess he's not going to be a VP candidate. I guess that's going to finally.
Yeah.
He's in Costa Rica, working on his prep of his off-season prep. So there's nothing quite like Aaron Rodgers for entertainment. I'll tell you that much.
At least the Jets finally signed Morstead. Finally, I mean, 2 years, $5 million. Okay, fine with me. They got Solomon Thomas back. Okay, not a bad move. They gave Mosley, had him restructure his contract, gave him an extension, so the Jets saved about $8 million on that. But the funny thing is, I read something yesterday that they had the right to match Quentin Jefferson's salary, and they decided not to, with the offer that he went back to them, and it was basically the same salary as last year, 1-year deal for $3.6 million, and they decided not to. Actually, I shouldn't say that. they were going to match it, but they took too long. He gave them a certain amount of time, and the Jets, didn't get back to him quick enough. So
Yeah, so they brought back Solomon Thomas instead, right? They signed a couple of D tackles already. I mean, Jefferson played okay. I don't think it's a major factor. They still have some holes. Obviously, they have not addressed wide receiver yet in free
at
agency.
least they're
Safety, they
trying to get
haven't.
rid of Lazard finally.
Well,
My favorite wide receiver from last year.
so yeah, let's quickly mention what the Giants have done. And Walter, I'll let you take this since they're one of your rivals versus Dallas. Brian Burns, I mean, he's kind of like Thibodeau, the way similar guy, right? A little undersized, not from a weight perspective. Tremendous pass rusher. Do you fear these two guys coming from both sides? It sounds pretty scary that they might have a great pass rush with Dexter Lawrence coming up in the middle, right? That seems pretty impressive. What do you think?
Oh, I think I've always believed what John Madden used to always say: your team is structured inside out. You're as good as your offensive and defensive lines, and I really still believe that. And when they signed Burns, I was like, oh man, really? Now we got to deal with him and Thibodeau and Lawrence. So I think it was a great pickup for them. I know a lot of Giant fans were upset about losing Saquon Barkley, excuse me, but he running. I hate to say running backs are a dime a dozen. That's not true, but he's he again injury prone. He went through last year pretty much healthy, but is it worth the risk of putting that kind of money for a running back when you can get a pass rusher of Burns' skills? So I think was smart on the Giants' behalf. Their question is still going to be their quarterback, and he's not elite. I've never been, when evaluating Daniel Jones when he came out of Duke, I wasn't like, oh my God, in awe. I'm still not. And, until they address that situation, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. Do they go out and draft a quarterback still in the round? I mean,
That's
something
what I
to
was
think
going to
about.
ask.
Sit behind Daniel Jones because his contract after this year's gone. So maybe you sit behind him, learn. And this quarterback draft I like a lot. I like it better than last year's quarterback draft. So maybe they take a chance on that, or do they shore up their offensive line to protect Jones and to be able to get the ball out and have the offense move the ball?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because the talk, whatever that's worth, is that at 6, that they would actually consider JJ McCarthy at 6. I don't believe that. I really don't. I do believe if one of the top 3 Williams, well, we know Williams is definitely not going to be there. Jaden Daniels or May slide, which is possible. It happens. People, oh, that's not going to happen. It's possible. I think they would go for one of those two. But I can't see the McCarthy situation at all. I think Penix is a better player. What do you think about it? And even Daniels isn't the most physical guy, and then May is physical, but does he have what it takes? So actually, you're probably this is a little early draft stuff. So what do you think of these guys? So you said you like them, but if you had to put them in, besides Williams, who's the obvious number one, but you could put them in any order you want. What do you think in the quarterback spot?
I am JJ McCarthy to me is a time manager. I mean, I haven't seen anything out of him that I'm going to sit there and go, he's got the ball, it's on his shoulders to lead us. I haven't seen that. I mean, Michigan's won the championship based on solid defense, running the ball, that kind of stuff. As far as I like Michael Penix in that second group or third group. I mean, Jaden Daniels has gone up the charts. I love him as a college football player. I remember, when he was playing Arizona State and went to LSU. But like you just said, does he have the build to withstand a 17-game schedule, season? I don't know. I mean, it's something to think about, and everybody's, loves May and the makeup that he has, and obviously he's got an athletic pedigree with his brother playing basketball at UNC and other stuff. But I don't know. If the Giants are that, I just don't know if I would take McCarthy at that spot if I was the Giants. Like you said, if May drops down or Daniels, then maybe that might be something to do. But you got to address the quarterback situation. I mean, I just don't see them. I still think they're behind Philadelphia and Dallas. I mean, Philadelphia just kind of, you know, upgraded their quarterback backup position with Pickett, but yeah, the
That was
Giants still have a way to go. So we'll see.
that was a strange deal, right? That
Hey,
Kenny.
really strange. I mean, how about even the Steelers? I mean, you got Fields after you just got Russell Wilson. I mean, it's like I'm
Yep.
going, okay, and Russell Wilson's still the starter. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a weird. That was very, very weird that they end up getting Wilson and then they trade for Fields.
Yeah, no, it's
Where's that
crazy.
going?
But the
Where's
thing
that
is,
going?
when you doubt Mike Tomlin, I
Yep.
mean, it's hard to criticize the guy, right? He's never had an under 500 season, so everybody's destroying the Steelers right now. But I don't know. I actually think that this is going to work out for them. So
Oh, I do too. I
yeah,
think Fields in the right situation with the right
Yes,
coaching. Russell Wilson, whatever. But I mean,
I think
Fields, I
Fields
think
is
is
the
the
right guy
guy
for
that.
them.
Yeah, I think that for what the 6th round pick. Am I
a,
right on that?
a six rounder, I believe, that can go to a four, right,
Right.
based on the snaps. But he's not going to get the snaps, right, because they already said they're going to go with
Well, yeah.
Wilson. So it's probably going to be a sixth rounder. So what is Zach Wilson worth? Like a seventh rounder in
Oh,
2037? So
he
Zach
has no
Wilson,
market.
he's getting cut.
He doesn't have any market. He
No,
has all.
you're
I
right.
mean, it's crazy. You know, and you had Howell going to the Seahawks. You had Garoppolo go to the. Your man Garoppolo went to the Rams.
Good spot for him. Good spot, right?
Hey, it's Sam Darnold to the Vikings. Come on.
Yeah, I know. We
Yeah,
talked.
we talked about that last week.
Can you imagine? It's crazy, right? Anyway, it's gonna. I mean, the draft is going to be fascinating where these quarterbacks go because the bottom line is, guys, out of those top three, one is a guaranteed bust. There's no way all three of those guys are going to be big time. So it could even be Williams. You never know how it plays out. So one of those guys is busting. I think Penix might be he might end up being the best guy if he stays healthy. I think it's fascinating where Penix goes because once
I,
you get say into the teens, is some of the one of the because there's what Denver, there's even New Orleans, right? Like I know they have Carr, but like what are teams with an established quarterback? Penix, that's probably a good spot for him because he can kind of just learn a little bit
yep.
and not be forced in. So I think it's going to be fascinating where these guys go. So looking forward to the draft, of course, as always.
One other
All right,
thing,
guys. So yeah, go ahead.
a surprising retirement was
Oh yes,
Aaron Donald
Aaron
retired.
Donald retired. We should definitely. I'm glad you brought that up, John. Yeah, I don't know, man. He's made a ton of money. It's a brutal game. It's easy for us to say, "Oh, keep playing," but inside the right, he plays.
He double teamed. He was double teamed for how many years? And he was even thinking about it last year.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
and after they won the Super Bowl the year before. So, I mean, believe me, he's set. I mean, the thing is, you want to retire from the game healthy. You don't want to have
right,
any issues.
right.
And,
yep.
and he's going out on top, which how many people can really say
No,
that retired?
I agree. Good for him. So anything else in the NFL, John? I might just like throw it up to you because we definitely run out of time. We're gonna have to say goodbye soon. But what I'll give you anything you want to talk about. If you want to talk about the Mets, your Knicks, whatever you want. You got anything good for us?
I mean, a couple of really quick things. Mekhi Becton ended up signing with the Bengals.
Yes.
They did not disclose how much they were giving him. I can't imagine it would be that much money. Flacco, someone who was sitting on his couch, ends up getting a 1-year deal for $8.7 million with the Colts. Just unbelievable. I can't believe some of these stupid contracts that they're giving out to quarterbacks. It's amazing to me. Quick with the Knicks, they've looked great against Portland and your team Sacramento. They picked apart them on defense. And Anobi, they're a little concerned about his elbow, but I'm thinking because he just had the surgery, he's going to have his normal aches and pains. So I'm not really that concerned about Anunoby. As long as he's in the lineup, they're going to win. They have a big game against Golden State. I'd like to see how they do against Golden State in Golden State. Really quick with the Mets, they had Steve Cohen spent about 20 minutes with the media yesterday, and seems to be very optimistic, overly optimistic about the team. He actually used the word that he believes that the minor leagues now are stacked. He used the word stacked, and I'm saying, okay, how would you know that? I mean, I'm looking at some of their minor league pitching. They're all right. I mean, I saw a couple of them in the spring training games, and then they had that what I'll call a futures game. Yeah, I mean, when you're playing against other minor leaguers, of course you're going to look great. When they were actually pitching against the major leagues, some of them were getting hit pretty hard. So, listen, I'm Mr. Optimist, so I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to observe everything this year. It sounds like to me, unless they're getting a bargain with JD Martinez, they're not going after him. They're going to stick with Vientos and Beatty and see where it leads them, because he kept talking about we want to see how our young players, how well they're going to perform. He didn't say that they wouldn't make adjustments. That's okay. But, JD Davis actually had a choice between the A's and the Mets and chose the A's for $2.5 million. And he said the main reason why he did that is that they promised that he would get more playing time with Oakland. Again, don't you think you want to go to a contending team? Maybe a contending team.
He likes the Bay Area, John. I guess he likes it out
Uh-huh.
there.
Yeah. And the Braves actually signed Adam Duvall for 1 year, $3 million, because Jared Kalanick is really doing awful during spring training. I mean, he's having a really bad spring training. He's striking out half the time. He's batting like 150. So, and it's pretty. Anthopoulos actually contacted Kalanick to let him know that he was going to sign Duvall. So, everyone was thinking that they stole him. I still think he'll be an excellent player, but this is spring training. Let's see what happens during the regular year.
So next week will be our baseball preview. Believe it or not, it will be a few
Yeah.
days. I know that you mentioned last week the Dodgers are playing in Korea or whatever, but the real opening day, get your mittens and wool caps on for some baseball in March. I always love baseball in March. It's kind of like hockey in June, as we always joke. So, I can't figure this stuff out. So anyway. Any last comments, Walter? I'll give you the floor. You got any sport-related thing you want to throw out there? Feel free.
No, I'm pretty much all set, getting ready to watch the games nonstop from tomorrow night until Sunday late afternoon, and then get ready for the Sweet 16 the following week. So that's what I'll be focusing on.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much as always. You made your YouTube debut, and we hope to have you back, obviously, throughout the year as we're talking sports all the time. So, John, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. As always, thank you to our producer, Zach Zubalake, and to our loyal listeners and viewers. Keep the feedback coming. Also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week.